Let's now deal with samples in action. It's good to talk about them theoretically, but let's now put the pedal to the metal, so to speak, or where the tire hits the road, whatever phrase you want to use. Anyway, let's put it in action. Non-probability samples, really, the probability of being chosen is unknown. That's pretty much you're doing probably the most inexpensive methodology, and you just want to sit down and get the work done. Boom, we're going to do 20 out of 1,000 and we just go forward and not choose any special group, any special demography, any special aspect of it that's cheaper, but you're unable to really generalize the potential for bias. It could be that you have a cluster of people from one chosen area that sits down and they just happen to be there. And maybe the family bought out 10 of the 20 houses. So all of a sudden you're getting 10 people, all one family, not even realizing it, and you totally destroy all the data. So yeah, it's cheaper, but there's a potential for bias there. And sometimes it's very convenient samples where you're selected because they're convenient and accessible and close to the researcher. You don't really feel like doing a really thorough job. You just want to get the job done. So here, let me grab these 20 over here. And to be straight up with you, sometimes it works, and you really can't tell the difference between a non-probability sample and one that's actually carefully planned out. It just depends what you happen to end up with. So the quota samples, you have a non-probability sampling technique where the samples the same in proportion to the other group as you go through, and then judgment samples where you select units to the sample based on their knowledge and professional judgment. So you have people that already are experts in the field. Sometimes these are fabulous, but sometimes a little bit of knowledge clouds up too much in the aspect of, well, I want to go back over here. I know that there's a famous magazine out there called Consumer something. I won't mention it by name. But to be honest, if you're reading it, a lot of the research they do is poorly done because it's not intelligently based as to what the average consumer would do. It would be based upon somebody with an intellectual capacity for really deeply examining this type of a product. One time they sat down and they recommended a refrigerator with a thermostat moved to the very front of the refrigerator. I don't know about you. I set my thermostat and I really leave it there for almost the rest of the life of the entire refrigerator. Don't pay attention to it. It's not something I'm constantly adjusting. So how is that parameter there? Well, a researcher would get caught up in the detail like that aspect of it. Sometimes we just overthink the issue. You have to pretend that you are in the mind of the regular consumer that's going to be using your service or using your product. So the computation really only requires a certain degree of precision, a certain desired level of confidence, and estimate of the population variability. Those three things are probably the biggest thing for your sample size. Looking at what you're doing. Pay attention to your margin of error. Okay, how much you're willing to be wrong by. I really have that aspect of a good 5% really seems to be good. If you can pull off a 4% accuracy, life is fabulous. But 5% is usually good enough. Once you go past that 5%, just about everybody that has done research will sit down and say, oh, 7%, eh? Okay. And if you got a 10% variation, it's almost a worthless study from anybody that knows anything about business research. So pay attention to what you're doing. If you can pull it off to a 5% accuracy, where you have that whole aspect of the standard deviation that was 5 points on either side of the average, life is good. The smaller the percentage error, the better statistical sense. And it really is excellent if you have that 95% aspect of it. So the amount of random sampling, okay, error in the results, we call that the standard deviation. Here are the common margins you'll see at the bottom over here. Obviously, they're percentages. So it's really a 0.0, whatever the number is. Common margins are 1%, which is the ultimate, really, when it comes down to looking at survey accuracy. 2.5% or a 5%. Those are the common ones that people like to report on, and that always about the standard deviation. You'll see a couple different aspects of it. You'll see the sigma, the Greek letter sigma sometimes signifying that, or an S for standard deviation. Just to freak you out, I'm including the actual formula over here. Almost nobody computes it by hand. I had a professor when I was going through business school and everything else, they made us actually bring the formula, and we had to sit down as part of our final, bring a sheet of paper and a pencil and turn it in our actual formula, and we had to compute it all by hand, including memorizing the formula, putting it down, and then implementing it. But we don't torture people like that anymore. We just give them the calculators. Here you go, and you just push a couple of buttons, and boom, it comes out over there for your sample size. Use the internet tables to calculate the sample size. Don't twist your brain in something like this. Twist your brain in other things. So with that being said, the sampling summary, you're looking at specifying population discovering is a frame, is an art, especially with sampling other than the people from the standard list. Sometimes you got to be creative, and sometimes experience really does play a role. So choose your sampling, stratified, random, cluster, systemic, however you're going about doing it. Set it straightforward, know the formula and the aspect of the concept of what you're looking for. High stakes problems, unusual sampling, it's going to depend what you're looking for. Sometimes you need to have a professional step in on the high aspects of it. For the average small business, you do not need to hire a professional company to do your type of research. If you follow the steps we have in this course, a typical small company, you can sit down and do the sampling aspect for yourself. It just depends how accurate you are and how comfortable you are with just talking to people, setting up your questions, and that if you're struggling with it, that's when you bring in the pro in. But you can do an awful lot from aspects off the internet. At the core of all research is the selection of the subjects to study, who it is. If you're going to be working in this county, in this state, pay attention to who those people are. Get a copy of the census, see who those people are. If you really want to go through, my study is, if I'm going to do a study in a region, I go to Costco and I just park myself outside and I watch people go in and out, because in California, that is such a part of our ritual of daily living, is shopping at that location. So it's one of those things of get a feel for the population that you're going to study. Go out and study the population based upon that, but have the idea first, and that is the core as to who you're looking for. Choose your method, can make or break your research. If you're not paying attention to the audience that you have, okay, then if you choose the wrong aspect of it, you're going to be really difficult. If you're going to choose an older population and you have a study based 100% on the internet, on Instagram, on Twitter, they're not going to pay attention to it because they're not wired into that. So pay attention to who your audience is when it comes down to the study that you're going to make. It matters, especially if you're risking your own money on the result. Pay attention to the non-probability samples. They're an awful lot cheaper. Look at the standard deviation, use your calculator, and what range of a large or small standard deviation means. The larger the standard deviation, the more inaccurate, the smaller the standard, the more accurate, and the better off you're going to be with the samples. Take care.